The big topic now is AI stuff and how you incorporate it into not just hiring, but every aspect of your business to make things more efficient. If you're just doing the same boilerplate resume and getting it outputted by ChatGPT, you're just going to be like, you're going to look at 3, 4, 5 people with the same thing and just be like, okay, what's the difference? We interview all of them. People are looking for jobs are almost like entitled and be like, you should be like selling me on your company, especially with these job websites and boards that make it so easy to apply. You can't really tell who the real candidates are or the ones that are even serious.
We are live on the Objective Hiring Show today with Steve. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
It's absolutely our pleasure. And Steve, it would be great if we could kick things off by getting just a bit of an introduction about yourself so audience can kind of contextualize what we chat about today.
So again, my name is Stephen Page, or Steve Page for short. I'm the VP of Digital Strategy here at Giant Partners. I'm also one of the business partners here. I've had plenty of hiring experience and business experience throughout the, I don't know how long it's been. I'm always like in denial of how long I've been in business for like 15 years now of like marketing and hiring, working with people. It's like time just flies when you're in it, but I'm happy to share any insights I've learned, any processes or tools and tricks that we've learned along the way. As we know, the big topic now is AI stuff and how you incorporate it into not just hiring, but every aspect of your business to make things more efficient. So happy to be here and share some insight if it's valuable to you and your audience.
Wonderful. Thanks for that intro. And you don't look a day over 25, so you've aged well. And that might be some of the insights you can share with us is how to age gracefully. As amazing as AI is, I'd like to start our conversation actually in a slightly different place, which is almost the opposite of AI, which is the CV, a document that is so old. Apparently, Da Vinci was the first creator of a CV nearly 500 or maybe more than 500 years ago now. And I feel like this document's it's kind of like the email of recruitment. It's just always there, somehow never really being killed off. It's always persisted. But I feel like maybe its time is finally coming to an end, just because we see so many candidates using a ChatGPT or a Claude or what have you to create a CV and kind of optimize it based on the JD. It seems as though, at least anecdotally, that the CV is drifting away from reality even further than it has in the past. What do you think about the CV? Should it still have this kind of central position in those early screening stages, or is it time to think about something else?
The truth is, when we get a lot of applications, we're not even seeing the cover letter most of the time. A lot of these platforms, you just submit a resume. There's not even room for a cover letter. Depending on the form or what you're using on your website, you could have an attachment where they attach their resume. Sometimes there's a form field to describe what they're looking to do. I think it's good to have some sort of personal message that talks about a little bit about who you are. If you can add some personalization to it to make yourself unique and stand out, I think that's beneficial, because what we're also seeing is a lot of people have the same experience in their resume. And then you're just kind of figuring out who has those other skills of like, who's really motivated, who loves to problem solve, who loves to do this. We're like all those little intangibles you can't really tell on a resume when it just says 5 years of copywriting experience or 3 years of Google ads. Like that's very like standard. And someone with 5 or 7 years of Google ad experience, for example, like sometimes the person with 5 might be better just because they've done it the right way, or they've done it in a more modern way that's new, and that the person that's done it too long is stuck in their ways. So I think the cover letter or even just some sort of personalization message is a good thing. And I bet there's tools now where you can detect AI. There's more like tools that could detect AI copy, but if you can like spin it in a way, show that you actually maybe like looked at the website, saw what they did, watched some videos of what they do. The same thing with like some of the email approaches when you're messaging anybody. It has to be more personalized than ever. Otherwise, it's going to get lost in the noise. So if you actually showed the extra effort to mention something that person was on a video or an interview. They went to some event recently, being like, "Oh, that's great. You guys went to X event in Miami last month. I saw this interview with this speaker. Hope you guys did really well there, and look forward to maybe being involved in it someday." So it showed that you actually cared and did a little due diligence um, for the potential company you want to work with.
And what about the resume as well? Like, is it in the same camp as the cover letter? If it's being generated with AI, if it's like, from what I understand, a candidate saying, "Hey, like, here's this job description, optimize my resume for this JD, make it like a perfect match." Um, where is that going to leave us if all these candidates are applying with these kind of slightly bullshitted, perfect looking resumes?
Right. Yeah, I think the same thing is going to happen where I don't think you can lie about your experience in the years. Like someone could check it, but people I bet do because some people might not actually. The person that's hiring may not do their due diligence and check every candidate, especially if you get hundreds of resumes. Like that would take a lot of time for them to actually check each person's LinkedIn profile or where they went to school and then do the math. Or like, say, went to graduated in 2010 and they said they had this, and then it's like they said they had 20 years experience. Doesn't make sense. They're only like 19 years old. So yeah, I think the same things happening in resumes where it's becoming um, so like it's being very cookie cutter. So even like making your resume a little different, I think is helpful. Even the look and feel of it potentially, and I think that can apply to certain roles. So creative role, if you like add some creativity to your resume, but like it's still easily digestible, that's one thing. Going too far and making it like so crazy that you can't read it, like using Comic Sans or like Papyrus font or something like that, but it makes it super annoying to read, then like I wouldn't recommend doing that. Um, but again, if you could add some like personalized spin to it, that could be helpful just to stand out a little more. That um, again, like if you're just doing the same boilerplate resume and getting it outputted by ChatGPT, you're just going to be like, you're gonna look at 3, 4, 5 people with the same thing and just be like, okay, what's the difference? We interview all of them. Then you're kind of looking for that like diamond in the rough, like what they said, or we noticed this in the resume. Like it puts more work in the on the person hiring if it's all the same.
Yeah, I feel like candidates are probably doing themselves a disservice at the moment if they're just going to use the same tool that everyone else is using, because inevitably they're going to fall into that sea with everyone else, rather than standing out, which is what they'd want to do. In your experience, is there, I don't know, any kind of aggressively un-ChatGPT types of words or language or things that ChatGPT just doesn't do that as a human you could do on, let's say, a resume that would allow you to stand out? Like, is there still some gap there, do you think?
Yeah. So we've been using like ChatGPT and copywriting tools for like 2, 3 years now. And it favors a lot of words. Like you see the same words come up a lot and a lot like unleash, unlock.
Realm. They love realm.
Yeah, realm. Like it's almost like too professional, too um like we use this is the top word in a resume. We're gonna use this word and like this is the best resume. And then all of a sudden that's the output for every resume they do. And like everyone's using the word unlock. Like everyone's unlocked like the key to their like business. It's like, well, obviously that's just like all people just generating AI resumes. Um, but just being able to like add even like the formatting or some sort of language that's more casual, more like your tone. Um, but again, you could even tailor ChatGPT to fit your tone better, or these AI tools, you can upload yourself talking or speaking in like interviews or everything like that, and you can somehow personalize it to your language, and that could hopefully make your output better, even if you're going to use these AI tools, and give you a better shot at being unique. And then again, you could always tell the AI tools to be like, be more edgy, more personal, be funny, be quick witted. It'll output some things to like use them that's more like off the rails for a GPT AI program, but that at least is extra effort and you're like putting in the time versus just like throwing in your experience and then having it output some resume and then you paste it in without doing a little bit of tweaking to it.
What about if you were a candidate yourself these days and you were facing these hiring conditions where candidates are probably looking at LinkedIn going, oh, wow, there's been 1,000 applicants in a day. God, that's a lot of competition. And I can see how they're then going down this more kind of volume based approach where it's like, well, I now realize I need to apply to like 10 times as many jobs as I used to because there's so many applicants per job. So they're probably using ChatGPT, kind of applying en masse. If you're in these market conditions now, would you keep applying through traditional jobs boards? Would you kind of fight it out by trying to, creatively adjust your CV and make it stand out, or would you try some other method to get a role? Do you think?
Um, I gotta try at the beginning any of the companies I really wanted like to work for or get um potentially get seriously considered for whatever role I'm applying for. Like pick a handful of them, and then like whatever their instructions are, make sure you follow them. Like one thing that like we've done a few times where we'll like mention a thing in the like the job application or like reply, add this in your resume or add this in your cover letter. So we like make sure like they added some detail in the subject line or something or a word, so we could even just filter out who even read the whole resume versus like the bots kind of thing. And maybe those tools even detect that now. Um, and then just put in the extra effort of adding some details about yourself, and then also putting in the time to personalize the content about the company, why you want to work there. And then I know it's sometimes a faux pas, sometimes isn't. Depends who, I guess, who's the hiring person, but like connecting with that person, sending them a message on LinkedIn, maybe if their email address, like sending them a quick message. I've even gotten a thank you card either after a resume or even just maybe an interview. I can't remember which one, but like a physical thank you card sent to me one time. And it's like this person, like that just takes time, that takes effort. That's just like a good quality to put out there in general to anyone hiring for any job, that you're gonna go above, like not even above and beyond, but you're just doing something a little extra that the other person doesn't take the time to do. And that just like it's, again, you're sticking out like a needle in a haystack. It just gives you an extra shot. I don't know how um used that is anymore. I assume it's not used a ton, but some of those physical like items like that that take a little extra time and a little manpower can set you out just to give you opportunity to get an interview. Because like I've when I wasn't even like the boss or the owner, one time the guy got that card and then he was like, "Oh, I got this card from someone that like was saw you at the career fair." It's like, "Oh, let's bring him in." Like that's worth it. Like it's just that thought that counts, and that little extra effort to just give you a shot, put you in the running versus you may not even get a chance to get an interview.
If you think back to when you received that thank you card from that interviewee, so this is after you'd interviewed them, is that right? Um, how did that make you feel? Do you feel like that changed your ultimate hiring decision at all? Um, yeah, how did you perceive receiving that?
Um, First, I kind of like surprised that like someone actually took the time to do that. Um, we actually ended up hiring the person too, and he was a good employee for a long time. But at first, like kind of catches you off guard because you don't expect it, and then you're like, "Wow, this guy actually like wrote a thank you card and like put it in the mail." Like all those things are things like I personally hate doing, and like it kind of it sucks. Like if you actually mail put it in his mailbox, not a big deal, but that's just the extra steps that you realize not everyone's going to take, and um, that's the kind of attitude you'd want to have for someone that if you're going to ask them to do something and they like do something a little extra, like that's in them. It's like, hey, you want to like send us a card, like you put that extra effort in. You'd hope that translates to the actual work ethic of the person, and like you, it's just a good correlation between the two. You'd hope.
Yeah, it's a nice, very tactful way to stand out. I think it's a good one, and especially because in this day and age, yeah, there's not a lot of physical mail going on anymore. Everyone's communicating digitally, so it stands out even more. And I feel like there's a lot of parallels between people doing sales outreach or marketing and what you might apply to your uh, desire to get a job, because the same kind of channels that are very noisy and very busy trying to sell a product are the same channels that are noisy and busy for trying to get a job in some ways. I don't know, certainly over the past couple of years, we've experimented with kind of physical things going to an office rather than just bombing someone's inbox, which is already so flooded. And it is, at least if nothing else, a way to stand out if you can do it kind of carefully.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a software platform sent us our logo in like a puzzle, like a framed puzzle one time. Not like we ended up working with them, but like obviously we all got it and saw it. Like you're not gonna, can't really avoid that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, we've seen it a handful of times with certain companies, and if the like the potential opportunity is big enough, like it's definitely worth it. And when you compare it to some of the advertising channels that are still expensive, like it's still not a it's relatively expensive depending on how much your budget is, but um, based on getting seen by certain opportunities and certain companies and certain people, that could be your best shot and your best um, use of some of your marketing spend sometimes.
And then back to, yeah, if you were a candidate in this current market applying, would you consider just kind of backdooring it and just avoiding the job ads completely? Would you try to be like leveraging your network? Would you go direct to the hiring managers without really bothering about the formal application process? Would you do that? And yeah, how would you navigate that?
Yeah, I do know, like when you put up a job post on LinkedIn, for example, you'll get tons of notifications through LinkedIn or like Indeed. But if you actually like look the person up and like maybe found their email or found their LinkedIn or found there's some sort of contact information to send them some like personal information and maybe even let them know you submitted your resume on LinkedIn just to kind of give them the extra poke because again, like most people probably aren't actually looking up the hiring manager or person if it's even there. But or you could even um, find people you potentially even be like working with potentially, um, and message them something about like, hey, I love your company. I love what you guys have been doing on the marketing side. Like this ad, this video, I saw this running, like has been doing really well. How I'm applying for this job. I'd love to eventually work with you guys. You're so talented. You can kind of like brew like massage their ego or something like that, and like be impressed by like certain specific things. Because again, like that goes a long way. Everyone likes to be rewarded and like feel good about the work they're doing wherever it's from, especially like sometimes from a stranger you haven't even met before, and like you're getting some compliment out of the blue. Like that's always nice. And then that person potentially could check in and be like, "Hey, have you talked to the Steve guy? He like went through all our ads and like um, created like a analysis of what he thinks has been working and what you can tweak about it." Um, like that's a great initiative. Like I love to just like bring him in for conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like the nuance here is you could deliver something of value. It's kind of genuine, as opposed to uh, just mass bombing people on LinkedIn with a generic CV, a generic message that isn't tailored, that has got 3 spelling errors in it, where you're applying to a job you have no experience in. So there's a spectrum of like how well you could approach this, from pretty dreadful to, oh, actually quite good and quite helpful, and you could stand out quite easily from the crowd, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of similar to marketing where there's cycles of everyone's using one thing and it's working, so everyone starts jumping on the bandwagon, and then all of a sudden, like the thing no one else is doing anymore, let's say direct mail, that starts becoming like the blue ocean where no one's doing like a mail piece anymore, like a postcard or a mailer, and then you're getting people that like the owner, the CEO, or like the head of HR is actually checking their mail all the time, and they get something physical that they can touch and see and read. Like that's going to be, that'll probably be a better route for you to get in there versus just being caught in the noise with all these other channels and especially email, for example.
Yeah, 100%. And so for these candidates, then, so they can be, yeah, trying to stand out from the crowd, either through kind of tweaking their resume, making their cover letter more relevant for the role, doing little bit extra, doing some research, then kind of back channeling it as a possibility if it's done tactfully through maybe LinkedIn, through email. Um, when have you seen this backfire? Have you ever been on the receiving end of some kind of cold approaches that were just a bit too much? You thought, oh, like I'm now not going to hire this person because of their approach. Like it was almost so bad that it's done them a disservice. They would have been better off doing nothing. Has it ever gone? Has anyone ever gone kind of too far the other way?
So if they ask, like they when they try to like jump ahead with certain questions potentially, can't think of any specific examples, but I'm just thinking in general, if someone like applied for a job and then like asked about it's like, oh, can I get extra vacation time or something like that if I apply for this job? Something like that where it's just like you're not even being considered yet when you're asking like for more things already, or it's like, can I get a free lap? Can I get a laptop with this? Can you pay for my laptop if I start working with you? Something like that. And like, you just kind of like puts you off, just like all about like me and like, and that's kind of, I haven't experienced this yet, but I hear just in podcasts and information out there where the people that are looking for jobs are almost like entitled and be like, you should be like selling me on your company. And I'm a one of a kind person and you want to work with me. So I want to have all these demands to work for you versus like, they also don't realize like you're, especially if they're remote work. I know a lot of companies are going in person, but once remote work opened up, you kind of open the competition gates to the whole world, not just your 10, 15-mile radius around your office. Your competition pool's way wider, and the people that are just as skilled or more skilled as the person that's local to your office is. So you you are trying to still sell yourself to the company, and like you may think you're the sliced bread or whatever, like that kind of thing, and like your shit doesn't stink kind of thing. But it's like we'll find someone else. Like there's a lot of people in that pool that are good and just as good as you are.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I suddenly remember something I said as an intern. My first job 14 years ago. It was the end of the internship with one of the big four consultancies, and we're going for a walk with my mentor. And I remember my exact phrasing was something like he asked me, "Oh, how was the program? How did you find it?" I think I said, I was disappointed. They didn't wow us, or they didn't wow me in terms of how good the internship was. And he looked at me like, what? Why are you even? Why is there even a way you're evaluating? Why are we wowing you? What's it got to do anyway?" Yeah, so I completely empathize with the current crop of candidates who might also be slightly delusional in their youth about how relatively important they might be. And you're right, the remote work thing just changes the equation completely, radically. I know even for us, um, we would get sometimes thousands of applicants in a couple of days for a role. So if one is not that interested, it doesn't really matter because we've got another 1,999.
Yeah, and that makes it harder on the hiring side, but like that's when you like try to nail down your processes of weeding out people even before you even evaluate some resumes, ideally, because you're going to get, especially when you open up worldwide, you're going to get a ton of automated submissions as well as real submissions, and that's kind of something you have to also weed out as well.
Yes, exactly. And how then, if you've been hiring remotely, how do you deal with that volume? Like you might have, I'm guessing, for your roles at least hundreds, if not sometimes thousands of applicants. How do you go from that initial set to deciding who to actually interview?
Yeah, so we'll kind of like make a custom GPT or like a model of our ideal candidate, direct down personality traits, experience, things like that, and then we'll run the resumes through like that custom GPT, whether it's like uploading PDFs or Word docs, and then kind of have it sort through and kind of pick some candidates it recommends based off of that. And then if anyone's like sent anything extra, then that's something we'll like take another look at. We don't really get too many of the extra submissions, but we also, I think it makes it so easy to apply, like on LinkedIn, for example. You just click a button and it automatically just applies for you. And I think there might even be automations where you could probably apply to any job of a certain like seniority and skill set. So some of these people might not even be like super interested. And like we've reached out to people and they like either don't respond or um, just say like, oh, they're not interested or wait for something else. So ideally, we want to create a process for potentially, hopefully, like fill out a form maybe, and then have like I said before, having some sort of word in the resume they have to insert into their reply, so we could filter those people out, and then see if we can potentially have them either answer questions either about specifically about the role and their experience. If we could get them to do like a video, just like introducing themselves too, so we can kind of see what their personality is, how well they can speak, how their communication skills are, and then after that, we kind of move forward with the interview process.
You reminded me of a little trick we used to use, or still do actually, when hiring freelancers on Upwork or freelancer.com, a platform like that, because similar kind of issue, you just get bombed immediately with a very large number of applications, including many that are automatically um, generated, which then means, yeah, there's like not a lot of effort for the person to go into it. They don't have any skin in the game really if they've automatically applied. We used to put one sentence in there, in your application, put the capital of France in all capitals backwards. And so it's amazing because for a lot of the roles we hired for, attention to detail was of paramount importance. So if they don't know the capital of France, don't know what capital letters are, and can't write it backwards, or didn't read it at all, they would all be very big red flags. That would be just a perfect screener, I thought, to filter out candidates. What do you guys put in the job? Like, what are you asking them to include in their CV in particular?
Oh well, we'll put like like include data in your subject line, or even like something outrageous like put banana in all caps like in the top of your like application, just to like make it so easy as it doesn't show up in the resume. So just do like a filter in your email potentially, and just like all the ones that have banana in it um, will show up unless they look like work for Banana Republic or something like that. But that might get picked up. But was there's all it takes is just like some phrase or word that's gonna stick out that makes it easy for you to filter. That just helps a lot with not only you're right, the attention to detail people, and just on the hiring side, especially with these job websites and boards that make it so easy to apply, that like you can't really tell who the real candidates are or the ones that are even serious.
Yeah, I think it's the easy apply on LinkedIn where it's pretty much one click. I think it's one click, maybe two clicks, but then seemingly some automation tools that are sitting in between that would um, include not only the hey, optimize my resume for this job, but also fill in this application form and apply en masse. And I feel like that has to be one of the other reasons behind this massive volume of applicants, probably along with the macro conditions, maybe a combination of those things. But then, yeah, it means that so many of those applicants probably can't even remember applying. Maybe they didn't even apply themselves. So it's like, well, what is this job you're telling me about? And so the anecdotal feedback we're getting is a lot of employers are shortlisting CVs, reaching out to those candidates, and then quite a lot of them are dropping off even at that point because they're like, oh, what is this job you're even talking about? Have you noticed that yourselves? Like, have you almost like a lack of engagement in those early stages from candidates as well?
Yeah, we're noticing not only lacking engagement, but the person doesn't even have the right experience for the job they're applying for. Like a digital marketing specialist, for example, will get like a junior designer resume or something like that, um, because it's like digital designer. That's like what they want, and it just has that one word, and they apply en masse. And so there's some of the resumes we get that aren't really applicable to the job. And then the same thing with like, for our digital marketing people, like they should have paid ad experience, where we get a lot of people that just do organic posting and organic marketing and posting. So that's another issue with the en masse submissions, that they the resumes just auto apply and they're not even relevant. So that's just this is more junk to comb through again, and just waste of time.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing because I feel like, on balance, it's better that we have these open job platforms where anyone can apply, and in theory, anyone has a chance of getting an interview. That's much better than having this very guarded scheme where it's like, well, you can only get a job if you know someone or your brother's in the company or whatever, like cronyism. But I could easily see how we might, at least in this current period where AI is taking over and there's this high volume of applicants, I can see how we might deviate back towards more of a, you know, mates jobs for the boys kind of vibe, where a lot of the roles are behind the scenes and are given to someone's friend or a contact of a contact or what have you, which I feel like would be um, not a great step in the direction of making it fairer, more equitable. But I could see how that might be where we'll go in the next couple of years, because that at least solves to some level the kind of spam issue, like you're not having to read through 1,000 applicants or what have you. Um, or maybe it's just going to be your approach, which is automate the screening, and then that's how you do it.
Yeah, ideally. Or we've another route we've gone is we've actually done some like manual outreach to people in certain roles. Like we'll do keywords for not only skills, but sometimes like people or like marketing or business names, like thought leaders out there, and like see if they follow like the Neil Patels of the world or um, Alex Ramosi or just some people that we like and agree with their principles, like Russell Brunson's of the world. And we found people that have followed them, and then also certain tools that we utilize. So like if they put the like we use HubSpot a lot. They say they've already worked with HubSpot and like let's say Asana as like project management tools. We can do some outreach for certain roles for certain people, and we'll send like direct messages en masse and like in a way where we're asking them like, do you know anybody at this role that's a perfect fit? And they'll sometimes be like, oh, I know this person, or they'll be like, oh, I'm actually interested. And that's been we've gotten a handful of really good candidates like that. With that, we're actually going after the people in like a mass way on LinkedIn to find like the best candidates for it.
And when you're doing that, let's say outbound approach instead of inbound, do you adjust the hiring process as a result? Because it's kind of like you're reaching out to them. Does that then mean the first step has to be a little bit less aggressive? Like, do you put them straight into an interview, or like, yeah, do you adjust the hiring process at all for outbound versus inbound?
A lot of times, so the first objective is just get them reply something, whether it's a friend or this, and then it's sending them the application, like, well, oh, what's the job, and like, love some details about it, and then you send them like the form or the link, and they will um, fill it out or just take a look at it, and then they'll respond or not. They'll be like, "Oh, I'm interested," or it's like, "Oh, it's like I'm happy here. Thanks for the offer," kind of thing. But the one of the next steps too is it's just like get them to introduce themselves. Like after we know the experience, like just maybe if they get them to make a video, just be like, "Hey, how are you doing? Tell us about yourself if we can." But if we've done our due diligence and like are targeting really well, usually that will lead to an interview. The only thing that's been a trip up is sometimes like they don't speak very well like English on camera or in general, which is hard to tell on LinkedIn. Sometimes we'll do something where like profile in English as like a filter is one thing, but that's only been the hang up where we don't like proceed to interview is if something like that is the case.
Yeah, you're right. Which doesn't stand out at all on a resume or on LinkedIn. Uh, and what about, so back to the kind of inbound flow where you're getting all these resumes, you're using um, some ChatGPT prompts to do the screening. Uh, how do you evaluate them? Does it come up with a score? Does it say pass, fail? Does it give you like feedback on the strengths and weaknesses or the criteria you're looking for? Like, what is the kind of output of the GPT you've put together?
Usually it'll say something like based on your requirements, what you're looking for, we recommend like name, and then it'll have like reason why they think they're a good fit, and then we'll go and check, and then a lot of times depending on how many submissions we get, we'll still look through and comb through a handful just to kind of be sure what we're looking at. Um, but that's like the way for us to especially in the early days, making sure we like hone our prompts, hone our language, what we're actually looking for, to then get us the ideal candidates. Um, and then what we'll do too is like anyone who's like applied and like been a really good employee for us, we'll like use their resume, use some of the stuff they've like, said and done as like a like again like another model or some sort of reference for the GPT to look at, um, as far as what they've done and what they said in their resume.
And would you have like one prompt for all jobs, or you'd almost have a common set of prompts across jobs and then a specific one per job? Like, how would you think about that?
It would tweak per role, so like it'd be very similar, but then we'd tweak it for creative versus digital marketing specialist versus a web developer versus a CRM specialist. So we'll have like our roles and like what we think is a good fit for each role, like what kind of traits that they should have, depending on what the role, the needs are, and we'll just use that at least as like a filtering process, just to kind of get us at least some like candidates we can at least review, and then if those aren't good, we'll just keep digging and going through the other ones. But it just gets us to the next step a lot faster than trying to comb through all of them and waste a bunch of time through tons and tons of resumes.
And are you optimizing more for like removing the noise? And let's say, I don't know, let's say you got 1,000 applicants. Is your goal to reduce that down to 30 you can look at manually? Or would you be more concerned with accidentally filtering out a good candidate and you'd rather have more to kind of manually review and less to knock out? Like, is there almost like a trade off there, do you think?
Yeah, yeah, we like try to not make it so specific and not filter out a good candidate. Ideally, if it's just the resume, like we have like their list of experience, what we're looking for, like minimally this many years of this and XYZ, have knowledge of uh, certain systems. Like it'd be great to have experience in like these ones. So we had kind of pick our like minimal qualifications and then also like a nice like must haves and nice to haves kind of thing. So it's like if they were like we work with HubSpot a lot, like I said, like if they already have HubSpot experience, that just makes it really easy if they've used tools like Zapier or like Google Tag Manager and more like more advanced tools and like processes and automations and things that are almost outside of the realm of like a day-to-day job of like let's say a digital marketer or even a content creator. There's some other things they've like learned on their own or done on their own. It's like those if they kind of check those boxes of like the nice to haves, more of those, they'll kind of get put in the front, and then we can look through those because then they check more boxes for us versus ones that like just have like the experience and nice to haves. Um, then again, they could always lie about that stuff if they really wanted to, but um, it's been pretty good so far what we've been doing.
Yeah, I guess with the kind of paranoia I was speaking earlier about all these ChatGPT generated CVs, I I would have thought and hoped it's more of an exaggeration that's taking place rather than complete lies, because surely the candidate will be undone eventually. Like they're going to get to interview, their CV is going to say 5 years of experience with HubSpot. Like, cool, tell me about your experience with HubSpot. They're like, what's HubSpot? That's gonna unravel pretty quickly. So hopefully it's more just, yeah, the AI's, massage the truth a little bit rather than coming up with complete bullshit. Um, one thing that suddenly struck me while you were describing the process was, um, you know, if we're going from this method of screening CVs with a human to at least the first pass being done with AI, I wonder if that will change the optimal length of a CV or resume. Because previously it's like, oh, make sure it's no more than 2 pages. No one wants to read a biography about you. Just like keep it succinct. But now AI doesn't have that limitation. It could ingest 1 page, 1,000 pages, doesn't really matter. Would having a slightly longer, more elaborated resume now be to your advantage, because you've got like a better chance to demonstrate your experience to then match more against a job ad, um, because maybe the first screen is now going to be done more by AI? What do you reckon?
Yeah, that's a good point because yeah, less and less people are manually just combing through these resumes and cover letters. And I always thought it was like really hard to like squeeze in, especially like if you want someone that's experienced and they just show like the last, I guess like show like the last year what they've been doing, and sometimes depending on the role, your last job you could have had like, or not like last career company, you could have had like 4 or 5 jobs within it and like worked 10 years and moved up and changed roles. Like that one company is gonna be like a paragraph or 3 or 4 paragraphs in itself. So I think having like something that's 2 pages is fine. Like I don't think it has to be drilled down to 1 page. And if you get explained some of the things, like I've noticed some people putting in like specific numbers of like the results they've done. Like when I started, we would get X amount of leads per month, and then based on some of the campaigns and channels we did, now we're getting 10,000 leads a month, and like the cost per lead has continued to decline, and we've grown this much. So like having those specifics really, I think, really helps, and showcasing that, like not just be like, I was a key component of our marketing team, and like I was just strong leadership qualities at this place, and having those specifics I think is really helpful. And if you get to do it in more pages and you can mention those more and more, and that gives you an opportunity to do that, I think it'll just help you more than hurt you.
Yeah, for sure. Because I feel like not only does it say something that is provable or disprovable, like you've quoted an actual number rather than a waffly description, it also almost speaks to your mindset if you are outcome driven, results focused, whatever you want to call it. Like if your CV also speaks to that and that's a key bit of the job, that's going to resonate, I think, on 2 different levels at least. It just makes it all more believable, I think, as well.
Yeah, and it gives you like a detailed question to ask about like on the resume. It's like, oh, can you talk more about this? Can you like walk you through our process, like how you achieve these results? You get more detail about that versus just like your general experience on something, where you can ask a specific question on um, uh, an actual detailed thing that you did versus just a general concept of how you think you were at the company.
It strikes me again, thinking about it now, like if I were to sit down and write a CV, which I have not done for 6 years, it would require quite a lot of almost meditation on what I've done, why I did it, what I contributed. Um, and I was speaking to someone recently who almost goes through this in their onboarding process once they've hired someone. They sit down and really drill into like what were the projects you did that you liked? Why did you like them? What resonated about it? What was it about this thing? So they do that once they've got them in the door. But it'd almost be helpful for candidates to do that before they apply, because that could then help you figure out what jobs you want to apply for in the first place. Like if you sit down and really think concretely about what you've done, could help make that search process better. And then once you're in that interview, also answer the interview questions better. Like if you've got almost like your history at the forefront of your mind, as opposed to some vague thing that's just sitting in the background. I can't really remember what I was doing 8 years ago because it was so long ago. I feel like having that down on paper and articulated would help a lot in the job search.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have like someone asked me like in the last 6 years here, like your specific campaigns and results. I'd have to like look back and be like, well, yeah, the first year we were here, we did this for this company. Then like the next year we did this cool thing, and then I have to like make like a laundry list in my head. Versus like, if I was asked that an interview question, I have to like think about it and take time, and then hopefully pick the right project or pick the right thing that we want to talk about. Versus like being, like you said, prepared and kind of going through that list beforehand. And it would be super helpful if it was on your resume already. So like those little bullet points, those notes are almost ingrained in you. You're like, oh yeah, exactly. I remember that. And I could talk about that specific client or specific result or project I was on. Let me tell you about it.
Yeah, you need those insights in your RAM, not your hard disk, I guess, to put it in computer terms.
Yeah, you don't want to go back in like the backup storage to go like find something and be like, well, I'm still looking for it. Let's just hold on a second. I forgot what I titled it. Yeah, it just says screenshot like 10, 15.
Yeah, that's not going to resonate. One thing I've heard a lot recently from people is how important adaptability is when we have technology that's moving so quickly, so fast. That's almost more important than just learning XYZ tool, because the tools are changing all the time. What do you think of that mindset? Should adaptability and like ability to learn be at the top of what you're looking for in a candidate or not? If so, do you have any thoughts about how to evaluate that at any stage of the hiring process?
Someone like continuous, like being a lifelong learner, I think is a big trait, especially now. Not even just in work, but like in your real life. Like you, man, I'm not sure you have like father, mother-in-law, or even your parents, and you're like, "Hey, you want to like? I'd love to listen to music." It's like, well, you can actually tell Siri to just play a song that you like. And they're like, "That sounds like a lot of work." I'm just like, "Oh, it's so easy." It's but if you don't have like that lifelong mindset, like everything's gonna be so hard for you, like whether it's in your job and life. So having that skill set, I think will make it easier for the team you're working with. If you ask that person like a question like, oh, like it's like, hey, there's this new tool called like to say ChatGPT, whatever. Like, you should play around with it, see what it can do for like a designer, like some design ideas, like come up with some design ideas for this client next time you come to a meeting and see what it comes up with. And if that person like doesn't even like try or log in and there's like, oh, it was too hard, or even like ask a question like, hey, like, can you help me figure out like what to say, or even like create an account on this? That'll just tell you a lot about a person, and that's something in the resume that you can see where like based on like the years they've worked, like there's some of the things like they adding like new certifications or new trainings they go through, like watching videos, taking classes and courses, and kind of staying up to date. Like I always ask like what podcasts you listen to, what news like newsletters you follow, what people you follow on LinkedIn or Instagram for like ideas or just keeping up with trends. I always ask that with people just to kind of see if they are listening to that stuff or um, following that stuff, just to see they're externally motivated, just to put the extra time in, like, or just play it in the background while you're doing like washing dishes or at the gym or whatever. That's not like I do, but I don't expect it to everyone. Just it's not mandatory, but I always encourage people. I'll share links to videos and podcasts and articles. Same with some people on my team too. And I'm always like, oh wow, they're actually keeping in touch with the times and the changes and the trends and the new features coming out. Like I'm super happy when I see that.
Yeah, you got to embrace the discomfort of learning something new. I know this myself, having recently picked up a guitar for the first time in my life, and it is bloody hard. When you've never played any instrument, you're like, "Oh my god, how is this even possible? How do you put your fingers in these positions?" But you just gotta, yeah, embrace the suck. I don't know, something like that.
Oh yeah, I totally get it. I had one of those video games that you get like a real guitar doing it. I think I played it for like one time and then never played again. It was like too hard. My daughter is going through that right now, playing some games on her iPad, learning to lose and like learning to get better. And like she's getting so mad, like she can't advance the level. She's like, it's not fair. I can't beat it. I haven't been, like, been playing for 20 minutes. I can't get past this level. And it's just like, well, that's like you just gotta learn, get better, try it again, like kind of figure it out. And then that's where I hear more and more like playing video games or just even games just gives you an extra, like you have to learn, you have to adapt, you have to get better, you have to kind of level up. It's just it's a skill, and it shows a little bit of that external drive to get better. It's just another thing for you to get better at. And if you can't get better, that's great. And it shows correlation to certain cognitive abilities. I'm not saying like that's something you put on your resume. Like I love playing video games, but like that's all. That could be something you maybe could bond over on an interview. If like the other person interviewing you is like plays games and they play a certain game, and you talk about this, and they would like if they have that same mindset of like, oh, gamers like have XYZ, and this person like has reached this level of this, and like it shows that she's like a hard worker in that aspect of her life. You'd think like in her job she'd have potentially similar motivations. Doesn't always match up, but same thing with sports or same thing with other kind of team oriented things where you'll find people who have like more discipline, more adaptability, um, more the right attitude to like solve problems, overcome challenges because they've already been through it in other aspects of their life.
Steve, as a final question today, What question would you ask our next guest about hiring if you could talk to them?
One thing I would ask your next guest if they um, if they've really cracked the code on some sort of automated intake flow of applicants. I've heard we haven't implemented this all the way through. Let's say it's equivalent to like a customer journey in marketing. It's almost like the applicant journey of like from resume to the candidate you want to actually get on the phone or a Zoom call with. It's like I've heard of like submitting a form, having like AI or something digest the resume, filter between those must have, nice to haves, and then that sends that person an email for them to submit some video recordings and about like their experience and their job, who they are personality wise, and then somehow we can digest that and filter out people that said the right thing or have the right traits on that, and then go to the next step, and then that lands in, let's say, like a Trello board or like a Google sheet, and you're like, all you have to do is look at that, and they've already gone through a few steps and just kind of show up in a sheet automatically that you can kind of comb through, because that could be something perpetually like could just go like you could have a job perpetually out there and like spend a few bucks a month promoting it and just keep getting candidates just dripping in, because the hardest part in certain industries is if you get an influx in clients or all of a sudden a busy month, it's like really hard to like just all of a sudden hire someone and you're in a rush. But if you already have a list of people you kind of already qualified and you can maybe speak to like for a little bit, you don't want to just drag it out and be like, hey, we're not hiring right now, but keep you in mind if something comes up. But if you at least have some sort of list of filtered candidates automatically some way, and you can leave running, it's like that person's built that and they have a list of like candidates that show up on a sheet or something. I'd love for that person to share it with us.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'll level that at our next guest. And I wonder if products like this are probably being built at the moment. I imagine they are. So hopefully we see a new wave of recruitment SaaS products come out in the next year or so to really automate a lot of this stuff that I can see companies are doing themselves.
Yeah, you could patch things together like using tools like Zapier or like now Clay. And there's some I found some form tools where you can give like vocal answers or video answers. So it like prompts you to click and then record. So like you're getting like video answers as instead of just written ones. So like that person can't just like generate like AI. You have to like actually talk and say a few things. But then there's the the balance of like how much work do you put a candidate through that like seems unfair because they're not really getting paid. They have to like, go through all these hoops just to get an interview. Or but then the other side is like you're getting people that are actually putting the effort in and getting real candidates to show up, especially if you have a big broad net out there and you're running like promotions for a long time. That should yield a handful of results because you don't even want a ton of results. You just want like one a month, like if that, like especially if you're not really hiring at the moment, you don't want to push it out there too much. But like I said, like these influx of clients or orders or anything can come up. You don't want to have to hire out of just like necessity just to get bodies in your business. Like you'd like to have some sort of time to validate and vet people. And this kind of gives you a proactive leg up.
Yep. Yeah, you don't want that cold start every single time you need to hire someone because it's a schlep to get everyone from the start to the finish of the process. It takes time to find the right person. Um, Steve, it's been a wide ranging and fascinating conversation today. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insights with our audience.
No, I loved being here, Tim. Thanks for having me on.